She with me getting low like a limbo. Ayo, you know what you in for. So we're gonna go through this. Good evening, everybody. As I hop on this and get ready, I am Drew Davis, aka Uncle Drew, and we are here for Uncle Drew's Book Club, where we'll be going through James by Percival Everett. We'll be joined by a guest at some point. But outside of that, for those that don't know, if you didn't know, whether you're on Facebook family, Patreon family, YouTube family, if you're there, like, subscribe. I love it. I appreciate it. The support, the love. Yeah, we're doing a book club this year. And with the book club this year, we are going to go through 12 books. I'll announce them at the beginning or give you about a month lead on them. And so if you want to join, you got to go through the Patreon. I'm not running and tracking people down for payments and money here, money there. All the information you can get through my Patreon. You can go through all my channels to get to it, to Instagram, to my website, threads, whatever it might be. And this whole year, we're going to get together and we're going to talk about and discuss books. So the people that claim that you want to read more this year, and I say claim, and I underline it a couple times, and I put some parentheses and quotes around it and all that stuff. If you want to do more of that, this is going to be the place to do it. We'll mix in some fiction, some nonfiction, some men authors, some women authors, and that's how we're going to roll. And so for those people that are looking for a space to read and to talk and discuss and to really get some stuff out of it, this will be the place to be. And so anybody that knows me knows that I'm always digging for knowledge. I have an insatiable thirst to go and capture knowledge and to have discussions with people. And honestly, that's what I want to do. And so tonight we'll be discussing Percival Everett, James by Percival Everett. And Percival Everett is an author who has written probably over 30 books. We'll go ahead and say over 30 books. And does a lot with black characters that he has, but more so than that, he writes thought-provoking stuff. For the amount of fiction that's in there, um, it's stuff to make you think. It's stuff to have conversations. There's some dry humor or some humor sprinkled in, and there's also some horror that is sprinkled in as well. And and I think, and I went back and looked at a couple interviews that he's had. Oh, hold on. All right. I went back and looked at couple of interviews that he's done with people, and he talks about his work and he talks about what he's doing, and he takes a lot from not a lot, but Mark Twain is an influence of his, and so Mark Twain is the author of The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, and this book precedes that, but the book James precedes that, and is talking about James from the perspective because he wasn't given a perspective to be had, pretty much. Um, so he's talking about this from a black man's perspective, from some black man's experience. And he's able to do a really, really good twist on it, in my opinion. It's really, really good. And we'll get into it in a little bit. But just the way it's written, the underlying context of it, for the importance of language, the importance of writing your own story, the importance of making other people feel comfortable or safe in order to make yourself safe. And it also deals away with the magical Negro trope, which is, having a character who aids the protagonist in their journey or to conquer their goal or what they're working towards. And there's a lot wrapped up in this book. Gonna have my homeboy join me in a little bit, and so I don't want to get into it too quick. But my guy is here. Let me add you real quick. Um, but my guy is here. He's in the building. I'm just getting in. I'm telling everybody. Can you hear me?
Yep, I got you.
All right, bet. So I was just pretty much explaining just the author, a little bit about him, a little bit about this book, and and then so I'll get into it with you actually, but I asked on threads. I said, "Yo, I'm reading this book next month. Anybody want to join? Let me know. It's open invitation, open invite." And my homeboy just hopped on and he said, "Man, I'll do it." I was like, "All right," I had to check, make sure he wasn't a bot or anything at first. And I said, "Okay, he a real person. We could rock with it." So then we were able to connect uh, for a phone call a couple weeks ago for me just to get to know him and just to have a conversation. Real cool dude, real down to earth. Glad I'm able to get connected with you. Glad that you were able to say, "Yo, I'm into this and I'm into books and I'm into movies, I'm into film, I'm into photography." So it's a person I'm gonna be able to connect with for a lifetime now. So welcome, welcome,
Thank you.
welcome. Anything you want to say to open up?
Oh, don't put me on the spot. Man, I'm happy to be a proud of it. I love the book, so I can't wait to discuss it. But yeah, no, I'm just happy to be included. This is something that I think I've kind of been trying to do for the longest of times, but for whatever reason, it never came together. So hey, I'm just happy to be a part of it.
That's awesome, man. I'm digging the shirt too. Let me see the shirt. Ah.
Yeah. Now you remember the conversation, like Michael and Prince are the bar.
Yeah.
Mike Prince, then everybody else.
We got you. See, that's a conversation for another day. We go get into it because we need to. We definitely need to. Um, and so just as we get the conversation going, so like we said, when we talked before, man, you're such an interesting person. I feel like when you meet fellow readers and people that are into film, you get just a wide range of people because it just doesn't look like one specific person. And I think that's the great things about people that read books or people that are attracted to movies and films and directors. You're just gonna get a whole slew of people, and you don't
Right.
really know. It's kind of, I ain't gonna say a crapshoot, not a crapshoot, but it's kind of like gumbo. It's gumbo.
Yeah.
You got something in there you really like, something like, but you just find a lot of interesting stuff as you go through it. I think your journey with film and how you got into movies and the love of it is so interesting. Um, Talk to me a little bit about when you first just got into movies and reading in general.
Yeah, no, movies. I was probably about five when I got into movies. And so the first three movies I remember seeing, and two of them were in theaters. But the first three movies I remember seeing was Jurassic Park, The Lion King, and Batman Forever. The two that I saw in theaters were The Lion King and Batman Forever. And I was obsessed. In a weird way, like they created the fandom that I still, live by to this day. I'm still a huge Batman fan. I still love The Lion King. How can you not? And I mean, Jurassic Park is. I have some tea over here, and I was gonna put it in my Jurassic Park mug, and I was like, no, I don't want to be that obvious. But man, like that movie was really what did it for me because yeah, the movie came out in '93, but I saw it when I was probably 4 or 5,
Yeah.
and seeing that T Rex for the first time, and seeing it come out in all its glory in the rain and everything, I was just like, "What in the heck? How did this happen? How did they do this?" And I was watching it with my mom and my great grandmom, and I remember I turned around, who was in the little living room area, and I turned around and I said, "I want to do that." And I didn't know what that meant. I just knew I wanted to be included in that because it was magic to me. And I spent the rest of the movie just like, how did they do this? And then the Velociraptors came towards the end of the movie. Then I was terrified. The T Rex didn't scare me for some reason, but those raptors terrified me. And I didn't want to watch the movie for like a week or two, and I could not sleep for a little while as well because we used to live in my parents. We used to live in this apartment, and my bedroom was like in the back at the back, and there was this long hallway, and then like right next to the hallway was the door, and I just kept thinking I was gonna look down that hallway and see those two raptors just right there. So it was a period of time where I was like, I don't even want to see the movie anymore. But I ended up getting sucked right back to it and watched it all the time. So
Mm.
yeah, those were the three. And reading, same thing. I don't remember a time when I didn't have a book. uh, when I was younger, um, most kids, they're outside playing and doing things like that. And I was very much an introvert. I was very much a nerd, so I didn't fit in or anything. And I found comfort in escaping to these other worlds, whether it be in film or books. And I spent a lot of time at the library. If it was something at school that interested me, I was obsessed with that topic forever. So Martin Luther King Day came around, and I spent months looking up Martin Luther King. When it came to dinosaurs, the same thing. Space, like all these things. Like I just spent all this time with it. So yeah, I don't ever remember a time where I just never was into some type of book, and that was something my mom, grandma, even to this day. When I went to see my grandma this weekend for her birthday, she's like, "Oh, you still keep a book in your hand?" And I'm just like, just, it never changes. So
Yeah.
I think lately, with everything that has been happening, I have again felt an escape from everything that's going. I'm a huge movie guy, but I have not watched a lot of TV um, since the new year rolled in. Like I've just kind of have stayed away from it, and do with it, and books have kind of become like that peaceful place again. And yeah, I'm enjoying it and just kind of numb to everything. I'm not even online as much now. uh, I haven't been posting as much. It's just like I just need to.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like again, it has become that escape. It has become fun again, which also had to do with the fact that I kind of changed what I was reading too. So
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Man, thank you for sharing it. Thank you for opening up. It's funny that you say, yo, like I was, I didn't fit in when I was younger. I got into books, I got into movies. They were my outlet. I didn't read it all, not at all. I won't lie on my mom, on my parents like that. I didn't like to read, and I wasn't really reading growing up. I remember I read a Harry Potter book here and there. I remember I read like The Giver in school, and maybe some other stuff we had to read for school, but I wasn't
Oh
reading.
my God, The Giver.
you
Could not
know,
stand that book growing up. I could not stand it.
and when you're reading stuff at that age and you don't get it, or you're just like, I don't even understand what the hell is going on.
Mhm.
And I guess the when I talk to people, and people know that I'm an avid reader now, and they're like, hey, yo, what should I read? And I'm like, man, I can tell you a lot of stuff that you may or may not like, but like first I need to know some things about you. Like, what do you like to read? Do you like fantasy? Do you like fiction, nonfiction? Like, and then I can better point you into the direction of something. Um, but it's always funny because I went from a person who didn't read growing up or just read for school to
Mhm.
somebody that people are coming to and being like, yo, I always see you with a book in your hand. I always see you posting about this, and that. Like, what should I be reading? And for me, it's a badge of honor where you're like, all right, well, people know that I'm a person to come to, or I'm a source to come to, if and when they do want to pick up a book. And so that's a good amount of responsibility to have.
Mhm.
But you also want to put something good in their hands, or something that they'll relate to, because just because I recommend it to you doesn't mean that you're going to love it, and walk off into the sunset and become a reader after that. So I just
Mhm.
find it funny because there's just different times that people get into reading. There's different reasons. There's different environments that they grew up in, and whenever they come over to reading. And I don't care when you get there or how early you got there, as long as you get into that boat to read is what really matters to
Same,
people.
same, same here. It's never too late, and it's the same thing. Even for me, like it's like where should I start? And I'm just like, well, what do you like? That's what you really should go towards.
Mhm.
I had to stop reading self help books because
Mm.
they were not doing anything for me but making me compare myself to everybody. And I'm like, that's not good for my mental health, but it may be good for the next person. And if you like action films or whatever it may be, like I feel like I always ask about what type of movies people like to watch, or the music they listen to, and then I'm like, well, you might like this book. um,
Mhm.
you know it's 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 an honor to be that person, but it's also very stressful at the same time because it's just like, well, I hope I didn't recommend something they're not gonna like, or it's something that turns them away completely from reading. But I just always have to just say, I hope I'm leading with the best things. Like told you a week or two ago, I had recommended "Don't Cry for Me" to like a lot of men that I knew that were becoming fathers or they are fathers, or men that just grew up with OG fathers, like truly like classic fathers. And I had started recommending that book, and I'm just like, oh, I did not tell them that the son in this book is gay. Maybe I shouldn't have recommended this. Maybe I should have tried this. And then when you start getting the feedback back, I'm like, okay, all right, good. They liked it, cool. And more importantly, that they liked it, it's just that they're also getting the message out
Yeah.
of it as well. So yeah.
It's so funny you talk about recommending books because in our conversation we talked for probably like an hour and a half when we first talked a couple weeks ago, and within that hour and a half and before we got off the phone, you already had given me two or three book recommendations. Like, yo, when you get a chance, I don't know what your 2025 looks like, but definitely that's one of the best books I read. This one was an interesting book I read. This author does good stuff, and so I came out of there and I'm like, yo, like I'm set for my reading in 2025 if I really need to be, thanks to you.
I'm going to put because okay, so it finally got here on Friday, and I have 100 pages left. This book here is yeah, yeah, you gotta. And I think the beautiful thing about both of them being out now, people can read both of them because there's events in Don't Cry for Me that's
Mhm.
also here, but it's from Isaac's perspective versus the father perspective. So it's like I'm reading it, I'm just like, oh, I remember these events, and I'm like, I wish I had reread it again so I could really just have it. But yeah, no, you gotta read Isaac's song because that thing is.
I'm gonna just let the silence sit there because I feel you want to talk about it. So you want to. There's so many. I can just tell right now. There's a lot of things you want to talk about or discuss, but you're like, I can't even start to tell you anything in this book because then that's either gonna ruin it or I'm just gonna keep going. Like I could tell that's.
Yeah, my. So I've been telling my wife about it, and I'm just like, you might want to read it. So maybe I shouldn't say this. Maybe I should say this, but this part here, I think the best thing I can say, and it's the same thing I said about the first book, is that the father is not a villain. He's from a different era, and it doesn't excuse, how he sometimes treat his son, but he undoubtedly loves his son, but doesn't know how to show affection to his son because his son is not what he perceives a boy should be or a man should be initially. And the
Yeah.
book hones in on that. And it's the son realizing as well in this book that he may have made his father into a bigger villain than what he actually was, and also realizing he got good things from his dad. And okay, I'm gonna stop there.
I appreciate you. You like, hey, I probably already even said too much, but
I
as
did.
it's man, it's all love. That's why, man, we need to. I wish there was as much joy and passion around, people that are searching for social media, the latest video that's popped up or the latest trend. Like we discuss books and talk about books and literature and authors and things like that. And it's sad in a way sometimes because some people have just a bad relationship or bad experiences with reading and what they've read. But you're
Yeah,
like, there's stuff out there to read for everybody.
everybody.
And I did some research earlier this year because I was wondering. I was like, I said, man, like I read a couple articles and they talked about like men read a lot of nonfiction and women read a lot of fiction. And the numbers are just totally off balance. And I'm like, nah, I'm like, man, that can't really be true. Like I started looking into it, but I had to look at myself as well. And so I
Hmm.
looked at myself, and a lot of the books that I had read that year were a lot of nonfiction, and they were
Hmm.
also written by men authors. So women buy stuff from men and women, but like men don't really buy stuff from women authors. And I
Hmm.
did the research on that, and I looked it up, and they said, reading fiction, you develop empathy. You're able to look at stuff outside of yourself. You're able to look at your situation, and it's like going into a movie. You go into a movie, you know it's real. I mean, you know it's fake, might be based on real events, but you go and watch it, and movies that move you have either been written very well and or acted very well.
Hmm.
And you would wonder why at the end of a movie you hear some sniffling and some you leave and you see some people with some tears. But reading some good fiction will do that for you. And
Hmm.
and I think it's even better when there is some truth embedded in it as well. So when you leave, you're like, huh, I never thought about that. But now I have to look at my relationship with my dad and kind of comb from that. Is there any similarities? Is there any crossover? Anything like that? So
See it. Oh, see, that's why those two books work for me so well. And it's like I told my wife because she was the one that recommended the first book, and she recommended one of his older books to me as well,
mhm,
Daniel Black. Um, but what stuck with me in Don't Cry for Me in this story as well is in a lot of ways my dad is this guy.
yeah,
No, I'm not gay or anything like that, but I was a different kid. I was sensitive. I didn't play the sports. I was into art. I was in all these different things. And my dad is looking at me like, I have no idea what to do. I don't know what to do. And reading this, it was just like, oh, I get it now. I think I may get it now. And I spent a lot of years once I had grown up, maybe a little angry. And it's like, no,
yeah,
I think I get it now. And I think what works so well about these books is the same thing I said when Moonlight came out those years ago is these are human stories first, and then whatever the circumstance is, that's secondary. So it's like you can relate to these things because it's a human story. Moonlight is a human story about the kid that wanted to just simply belong and be loved and
yeah,
accepted for who he is. That's really what the story is about, and not to downplay the fact that he was gay or anything like that, but it makes the story accessible for everybody to watch because we have all felt what that feels like in some capacity.
yeah,
Same thing with what's in these books. We've all want boys in particular, and we want that respect from our dad, no matter what. We want that respect. Your mom, to a certain extent, they always say mama's boy. You're gonna be your mama's baby regardless. But when you have your dad's respect, it's like, okay, I'm all right in this world. So putting that into text in these two books, and I'm just like, if I was a big enough name, I'm like, dude, let me make a movie out of this, please.
you
So
think you definitely think somebody gonna beat you to it? You definitely think,
I hope not.
yeah,
I hope not, because when I read the first book, I was like, this is a film, and now I'm reading this, and I'm just like, this needs to be a film,
hmm,
so more people can see it that may not want to read it just yet or whatever it may be. I'm like, this needs to be. I feel like I told my wife today because I keep talking about James. I'm just like, that book ended. I'm like, okay, I want the movie for what happens next because he was dropping bars.
yeah.
The man said, I am your angel of death. I am the change that is coming. And I'm just like, oh, I want that movie. I want that book.
So as might as well just segue into it since we brought it up, man. So Dane by Percival Everett.
Yeah.
Um, I was so it and I we talked about this, man. I hate when I dislike, not hate. I try not to use that word. When a book pops up and it pops up as this is the book of the year, and you're looking
Mm-hmm.
at reviews and everybody's saying you need to read this. This book is so good. It's thought provoking. It's this. It's that. It's hard for me to go in with a clean slate and not already have some preconceived notion on like this book is good or wow, should I really be amazed off him saying that or what's going on or what's happening?
Mm-hmm.
And it lived up to it, in my opinion. It lived up to
I
it,
agree.
and we can just go ahead and start talking about it. Like I said, these aren't even like I said, it's gonna be a conversation, man. And I find I've done book clubs before and I've tried to have it structured and we're gonna go this way and go this way and we'll close. Man, let's dive in. We're not gonna sit here and put our toe in the water and oh it's a little bit cold. I'm gonna just
I
wait
was
a
saying
little
because I
bit.
jumped to the end and I didn't mean to, but like
You're fine. You're
those
good.
final chapters is like I don't know what happened, but it was like a switch went off and it went into overdrive. And I'm like, my God. And from the moment that ship went down,
Hmm.
okay, let me back, I guess, because Percival, I think, is an amazing author, and I think he has a way with words. Some people are just meant to do what they do. So when they got the Book of the Year award and everything, I wasn't surprised, but I was just like, maybe I don't need to jump in it just yet because I had read a few of his books. I knew he was brilliant. Um, I don't want to say this is his best, but it was something about this that just hooked me instantly. Um, the way he described things, the way that he developed to me. Obviously, Huck and Jim get most of the true character development, but the secondary characters, while they may not have been as fully developed as those two, I still cared about them for better or worse. I cared about what happened to them, and I think that's just true writing. I even say that for film, where you care about the secondary characters, if they have a little bit of time or a lot of time, they did a good job. They did their job, and yeah, I have so many thoughts just running through my head right now. But yeah, that final, I'm gonna say arc of the
Okay.
book for the moment that ship went down,
Yeah.
it just went into overdrive. I was like, oh, he is not playing anymore. It's like the switch went off, and I feel like almost like when we can do spoilers, right? Like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, we
okay,
hear. Yeah. Yeah.
okay. So I almost felt like when the little girl died, I feel like that was kind of when the switch kind of happened.
Hmm.
I think that was really when it started happening, and you started seeing those seeds where it's just like. Mm-mm. And he saw he said several times he saw his daughter in that little girl. So it's like I think it was just that determination was like, no, I have to get my family back, and this is not going to stand anymore. And yeah, just I felt like, and I felt so terrible. We knew so little about her,
Hmm.
and I felt so bad when it happened. And I was just like, God dang it, I knew she wasn't gonna make it, but dang, like this. And I think Norman was his name. That
Yep.
one, still low key upset about that.
Mm.
It was necessary, I get it, but I'm just like, oh,
Just so, what's up, Ari Danny? Just want to give love to some people in the chat. Thanks for being here. Man, there's this like we said, this could be a conversation. This conversation is the type of thing that you would go to a coffee shop or go out to dinner and sit down and eat, and next thing you know, you guys are both eating. The waitress has dropped off the check. You've paid the check. You thought you're leaving, but you still there talking, which is lovely, which is good. Um, Speaking about just the part you get on, and I'll go back to the beginning. If anybody hasn't read the book, read it. I would say if you're watching this or you're gonna watch this, don't watch this until you read it, because we're gonna talk about everything. And so, like I was saying before, James by Percival Everett is about Jim from Huckleberry Finn. It's from his point of view on everything that went down, and it's a black slave at this point back in the day, and it's a white kid. And it's funny because I finished this book about a couple weeks ago, and so everything wasn't fresh in my mind. But I wrote a whole bunch of stuff down. I wrote down names of the characters and things like that. But even from the beginning, like,
Mhm.
we hear about slaves and we hear about language, and we can just go to the beginning where you see them changing the way they speak based upon who they speak to. You can see him talking when Huck and Tom Sawyer are trying to steal something from the kitchen, and they want to leave a nickel, and they put his hat up on the hook to think he's gonna think witches did it and everything like that.
Mhm.
But you can see from the very beginning that it's different. And
Mhm.
in my mind, when I read about this, when I heard about it, I didn't get a lot of information, but I was like, I want to see about it. And everything that lined up in it was stuff that we still deal with today. And some of the biggest things in this book are about language, are about you making somebody else feel safe in order for you to feel safe, which is an even bigger problem. And then and then on top of that, just and Jim talks about this later, where he says like you're battling and talking about people for equality, but they're still telling you you're inferior. Like, all men are created, and Huck asks a bunch of questions, and we'll get into that, but he asks these questions, and Jim gets so exhausted trying to answer the question because he can't even answer the question based upon how smart he is or how intellectual he is. And he can't dumb it down to a point to discuss it with the kid because he might give away, like, I'm not really dumb, or we're not really stupid, and we're not really
Mhm.
simple. Um, and so just thinking about the beginning of him just even having to leave based upon the events that happened, Jim is about to get sold. And so he's like, man, I'm going to dip out of here. I'm going to come back and get my family. Huck ends up faking his death. And from there, it all goes downhill because Jim knows he's going to get blamed.
Yeah.
Knowing this stuff, and as I got not a bunch, but I wrote down some stuff here that I want to make sure we talk about. And one of the things is the magical Negro trope, that
Mhm.
pops up in a lot of movies where there's this magical Negro who ends up helping the protagonist get what they want and aid them to get what they want. And in this story, you don't get that though. You get him taking care of Huck because he's his only father figure, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it wasn't, it
Yeah.
wasn't portrayed like that. Like, they kept getting separated and coming back together. But like you talked about that part in the book, when it came down to that, what was it? Them crashing on the raft and them getting separated, and him waking up and seeing Huck over here and seeing Norman over here, and he has to make a choice, and he
Mhm.
goes and he gets Huck,
Mhm.
and so Norman doesn't make it. Let's just talk about the relationship between James and Huck because they spend some time together on that raft. Huck asked some very interesting questions about slavery, about about, I think, a little bit about justice,
Mhm.
about laws,
The
like
war.
stuff like that where Jim couldn't really answer. And for me, it's very interesting because you can see how complex it is, but how simple it is. So
Mhm.
when they escaped, and Huck says something to the likes of like, should I take you back because aren't you Mrs. I think her name Watson, Mrs. Watson's
Watson.
property? Or like, does that mean like you're my property now? Like, he kind of said something like that, and like, and it makes you say like, okay, well, people are property,
Mhm.
but it's also not property. So through the time you have Huck saying, "This is my friend," in certain situations, or Huck is too young to really know. But then
Yeah.
you also have Jim trying to explain to him like, you can't really be telling people like you're my master, or you're my master's son. Like, we're taking a
Mhm.
trip, we're going here, we're going there. Talk about what you saw, or what do you think about the relationship between Jim and Huck just throughout the book?
Oh, I think Huck's, so it's still very childlike, but he has a maturity that is, I don't want to say out of this world, but kind of out of this world, because I feel like when I was that age, the stuff he was asking about, I don't feel like I would have been asking about necessarily. Um, but I feel like you said, I think Huck needed a father figure, because of the situation that he was in. It was not a pleasant one. It's very abusive. Um, to an extent, not to say he went through what Jim went through, but he kind of did because he was made fun of because of his hair and things to that degree. But I think there was common ground between the two, and I don't know. I was very very fascinated. I'm not gonna lie. There were times I was just like, bro, you care too much. You care you care too much. Leave Huck on. Get on out there and just do what you need to do. Of course, when we again got to the ship sinking, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I see why why you cared so much. But I mean, in a lot of ways, I love that relationship because I feel like they both were learning through each other. There were moments where when he had said, I met your mother once, and he's like, was she pretty? And he's like, well, I can't say she was pretty. And he's like, well, why? And I've been that kid before. I'm sure my dad has plenty of stories, like where I just kept saying why, and eventually, no matter what your intellect level is, you get to the point where it's like, stop asking me. I don't have the answers anymore. I can't say anything. So yeah, I think that their relationship was necessary. I think it was needed because I think they both needed each other in more ways than one on this journey.
Yeah. And you hit on an interesting thing there. So like I remember reading the book and I have this problem where I'm trying to figure out stuff before it's able to get figured out. So somebody had asked him a question early in the book and they said like, does the boy know? And Jim was like, what do you mean? And like they glossed over it. Like really like I went back and read it like twice because I was like they never continued this conversation. I forgot exactly who it was with, but they never continued the conversation. And then it popped up again later and it said something like, he looks like you or something like that. And then my kind of wheels got started turning. I'm like, are they about to say this dude is his son or this is his father? And he planted it really good. I love Easter eggs like that. And I really had to think like, because why is he taking care of him? But at the same time, did James know? Like, you know what I mean? Like, was that the realization he came to? He didn't have to go on Mari or anything.
No, not Maury.
But in a sense where you're like, and that was a whole nother dynamic. So now that when he found out that, hey, this is my dad, you're my father, and they had that conversation on like, am I black or am I white?
Yeah.
And Jim is like, honestly, you can be whatever you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And this is also another problem with today is like he's like, you can decide and pick and choose what you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
I put on this skin and they know exactly what I am and they treat me as such.
Mm-hmm.
And so just hearing those parts and that adds another layer to the book where you're like, ah.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's like the dynamic again is just like it went back to he still needed him, even though he was like, you lied to me all this time. I don't need you. I don't need this. And then you're still following him.
Yeah.
You're still attached to him and ultimately still wanting to do the right thing. But it's just like you can't, you do not have the power to do so. So, yeah, no, I love their relationship and their dynamic. Me personally, I have forgot the Easter eggs because I got so invested in other things.
Yeah.
So like when they had gotten separated and then it really just kind of becomes James' story, I had kind of just really forgot about everything from that point. I'm just like, oh crap, where are they going to go from here? How are we going to get them back to each other? There were things that happened that broke me. I literally ranted for 15 minutes about that pencil.
So why did that break you?
knowledge is such a powerful thing, and I feel like old people always say, or older people, I should say, always say, if you want to hide anything from anyone, put it in a book.
Mhm.
uh, so the knowledge is a powerful thing. A pen, pencil is a very powerful thing. Having the knowledge of knowing what to do with that is such a powerful thing. Um, that boy sacrificed his life to get him that pencil. Um, and it it broke me like when he saw it happening from afar, and that boy looked at him and basically just said, "Run."
Mhm.
And I'm just like, God dang, I'm literally sitting there reading. I was like, please don't kill that boy. Please don't kill that boy. And when that revelation came, I was just like, it broke me all over again.
Yeah.
Cause like he made the sacrifice for somebody else ultimately to take it even further. Hopefully, ultimately, I think Jim Wood is going to end up doing that. But just it devastated me. I cared so much about that little group, and we were there for such a short period of time.
Mhm.
But I felt like I knew them so well just by the stories that they told. And yeah, it's just like, man, you did all of this over a pencil, and you didn't find it. Yeah, he did steal it, but you never found it, and you
Yeah.
still did all of
Mhm.
that. So yeah, I always take such great offense um, when I see online, I'm not my ancestors when it deals with topics of race or anything, and I'm like, no, you're not, because you probably wouldn't have made it. We're not built like them, as much as we may want to believe it. The strength that they have, for those that are still here with us, the strength that they have and had,
Yeah.
we're not built like that. So
Yeah.
I always take such great offense when I see that online. Anytime it comes to something that happens that's racial, it's disheartening that these things are still happening to this day. To go back to the beginning where essentially they were having class on how to speak to these people,
Mhm.
and I'm sure most of us have had these talks with our parents. So this still happens to this day, where it's just like talk this way. Yeah, don't wear your clothes this way, because you won't be threatening or as threatening, and it's just
Yeah.
like these things still happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just that broke me. Yeah, it's just I think about Trayvon Martin. I think of the kid that had the water gun or the BB gun.
Yeah.
That
Tamir, was that Tamir Rice?
Tamir, I think of all of these things, and these
Mhm.
things still happen. So yeah, it broke me beyond belief, probably more than I anticipated. I had to just sit there for a minute. I'm just like,
Yeah.
and he probably knew ultimately.
Yeah.
He knew the risk, and once they got to the point of where it was happening, he still had enough strength to just smile and basically nod and say, "Run." And
Yeah.
I was just like, God dang. So yeah, broke me.
It's crazy to think that somebody can get, you know, beat, punished, whether he also maybe got killed over something as little as a pencil. Because it's you stole property, you were dishonest, you were this and that. And this is like you said, this yeah, his name is Young George, and so
Young Josh, yes.
I don't necessarily know how old he is, but like we have to say no older than a teenager. You know, I would probably
Mhm.
say that probably maybe 10, 12, or something like that possibly. Um, and I think they also knew that it was going to be all bad with him there. Like not all bad, but the group that he came across at that point, where the guys are like, "Hey, they gonna come with dogs and they gonna find you, so this is probably not the place to chill." But they went back a couple times, and they gave him some food, but he also Jim had more food for himself to give them than they brought to him, or a variance of food, I would say. And I feel you on how that breaks you, man, because I knew when he asked for that pencil that something was going like it was going to pop up in a big way at some point in time.
Yeah.
And just knowing that, like you said, they didn't even find the pencil on him. You know what I mean? Like, we just most likely deduced that it was you, because why else would a pencil disappear around here? And
Mhm.
does that master or person have a lot more pencils or a lot more money to buy pencils? Most
Plenty,
definitely. Like,
plenty.
it's not the point that I lost a pencil. It's more so that you who are my property got away with this pencil or helped this pencil disappear, and I'm gonna let people know that that's not flying out here.
Yeah, and it's just the way that it came up, how it's just casual dialogue where it's like, yeah, young boy got lynched, and just the way it came up, and it's like something about a pencil, like my stomach just dropped, and I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, you know. And another moment that brought me, well, bro, that broke me rather, was when he witnessed, I forgot her name, but when a woman got raped right in front of him.
Yes. Katie.
Yes,
Katie.
so I felt that anger and rage, like that he had towards the end. I felt it
Mhm.
too. Because I was like, oh, if I could jump through this book right now. Like, it became very real to me. It was just the lack of regard that a black life has. It's just didn't care. He just unbuttoned stuff, told her what to do. Um, Same thing when Jim had gotten sold, when Norman sold him because they thought that was a good idea for some reason, and he got whipped for basically no reason.
Mhm.
For no
For
reason,
just starting a job that he's learning how to do.
and not being good at it or great at it, I should say. So yeah, there were a few moments, and I think it says a lot about the kind of man he was. Because even still, he took her with him,
Hmm.
and pain and everything. He took that girl and they ran off. So yeah, I think that's the movie I want, or the book, or whatever I want. Because that character at the end, it's like I already knew he had seen some stuff. But it's like now I know he has seen some stuff,
Hmm.
and I'm like, I want to know where we go now, because I feel like there's something interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
Sammy. There we go.
yeah.
That's so yeah, as we man, it gets so, like I said, man, this conversation could be hours, man. Once you start to really dig into stuff. He dealt with so much of, like, he had to see, there was in this book, he saw, I don't know the exact number, 4 or 5 people die, like saw 4 or 5 people die at the hands of white people, at the hands of slave masters. They're chasing them, trying to track them down because they're their property.
Mhm.
Um, and at the end he ends up killing 2 white people, like, what was his name, he got his comeuppance, Hopkins got his comeuppance, that was the one that raped
Mhm.
Katie. And then also the other one at the Graham farm, that when
Yep.
they, so that one as well. um we talked about language, and we talked about the language lesson that they had to give the kid, we talked about the language lesson that they have to have. And one thing I read, or one thing I saw as I was researching and looking up interviews of him, um, one big thing is the mastery of language. And I guess the funny parts in this book to me, like I said, I looked it up before, and somebody was like, "Man, I don't understand how this is. None of this stuff was funny to me." And James, or Percival Everett, said in the interview, like, in order to, he said, once you give people humor, you can pull them in, and
Mhm.
once they put their guards down, then you can show them the horrible things. And
Mhm.
so that's what I felt we got. But some of the funniest stuff I found was when Jim, like, will be talking regular, and then Huck will be like, why are you talking all funny like that? And then he
Mhm.
revert back to talking in broken English or in their code. Um,
Mhm.
but one of the biggest things was when James, or Jim, I'm gonna always use them interchangeably, when he got Huck after he was with that family that had a gunfight and killed themselves. They got on the boat and he was talking regular. And he was talking regular for a while. And I didn't even notice it when I was reading. Like, I'm
No,
just
I didn't
reading
either.
it and I'm like, oh yeah, da, da, da. And then Huck is like, you talking funny again.
Mhm.
And then from that point on, he started to kind of go into, like, yo, this is what it is. This is how I talk. It's not taken back like that. I just think it's so interesting that we're always gonna find a way to communicate between us. And
Hmm.
for them having a mastery of language, it was to disarm the white people, to make them feel safer. Now we talked about that, to keep us safe, but also to be non-threatening or non-invasive to other people. And Percival Everett said, "We will find a language to communicate in front of our oppressors." And I just, it was, and whether that's us being on this call and me giving you a look, or you know what I mean, or us being in person and us somebody saying something and we just kind of,
Hmm.
and we've always been subtle. We've always been able to do that. Uh, Chazzy Chat says code switching to survive 100%. Um,
Yeah.
there was a very interesting thing I saw. It said fulfilling the expectation, fulfilling the expectation that we're not smart, fulfilling the expectation that they're safe, fulfilling the expectation that they are smarter than us, that they know better than us. And like once I started thinking of all this stuff and it started compounding, and I was just sitting here and I'm like, damn, to capture it in this book where you have two people talking, two slaves talking, and the way that you know that somebody's coming that you shouldn't be talking is you just
Code switch. Yeah.
automatically switch, and it lets everybody in the area know, like, all right, somebody's here. We're on this plane now. We're still gonna finish what we're talking about, but it's in a way that they can't decode.
That's gonna be. Yeah. It baffles me just knowing history in general and knowing that we're the threat. And in this book, the examples that they gave was like, oh, they don't feel pain like we do, and it's just like, oh, who tells you that? Who told you that?
Mm-hmm.
They dumb. That's why his name is February, but he was born in July. Okay, okay. I mean, when he got with the minstrel singers
Mm-hmm.
and the bluntness that they had, where we don't believe in slavery, and I forgot what he said exactly. He was like, "No, we ain't fighting for you, but we don't believe it." It's like,
Mm-hmm.
what?
Yeah.
Like that entire time he was with them, I literally was just like this the whole time. I was just like, this is it's because they are the people that exist to these days. Those type of people exist to this very day. And I had at one point had said, and I think it may be a little bit, ignorant on my behalf as well, but it was at one point I said I'm not supporting another slave movie because
Mm-hmm.
our history is so vast.
Yeah.
And I don't like that we're sticking on this one particular section. Um, and maybe that was ignorant of me to say because I think we have to champion our history for better or worse. But when I was younger, I was a lot more outspoken, and I was just like, these movies exist. These movies exist to make white people feel, look, we're not that bad. Like, look at this. And it's like, I don't want to support this anymore. So, it's just, you still see that even today where, you're going to have a group of people that was just like, oh, no, we don't like it, but we're not speaking up for you.
I think it's interesting. I think it's very interesting you talk about that because one of it's there's a couple movies that are my very favorite that are I really like the movies. I really like how they're done. But I can't I can't continually watch them when it's showing the worst parts of what we've been through.
Mhm.
And one of those movies is 12 Years a Slave. Like I've probably
Mm.
seen it 3 times and I know
Oh,
it's a
you're
great
good.
movie.
You're good. I
And
saw it
you know
once.
what I mean? Like and I think the third time I saw it was maybe earlier this year where I was like, and it's one of those things I tell myself, man, I gotta put that on. Man, I gotta put that on. And it's the messed up part of slavery, it's the messed up part of them taking advantage of us. And then the second movie is Judas and the Black Messiah.
Mm.
Like different time frame, but still government laws doing whatever they want to um to justify what they're doing. To go and kill. I keep forgetting Fred Hampton was 21 years old, 22.
So young, so young.
Like with so much, so like when we hear this, and I feel you, I'm 100%. I'm like, our history is more vast than this. Our history is more rich than this. And also, like you said, people do it and they hold it up on a pedestal and they're like, oh my God, it's such a touching movie, and this and that. And it's like, that's what a lot of people were going through. It's not just a
Mm-hmm.
touching movie, it's a reality.
Yeah,
There are
my
some
lineage has been through that at some point.
Yeah, there are some grandparents that remember that, like not
Oh,
that, but like remember their mom or their cousin or their uncle. There's people that probably, had family members that were like lynched and things like that. Like we're
hmm
talking if my mom's from South Carolina, so I can still
hmm
fear or feel the fear of her when it comes to dealing with white people walking on the sidewalk or moving to the side when they're coming down the aisle. Like I felt that ever since I was a kid, even though we grew up in Denver. And
hmm
so I just, man, I,
So
this book
my
opened.
great
Go ahead.
grandmother is from South Carolina, and I think there was a time, as a kid, you don't think anything about it, but it was at some point, as I had gotten older, and I would drive down there or drive up there to see her or whatever, and I'm just looking at all this land, and you see the house is just all the way in the back or whatever, and at some point it just clicked. It's like I know what happened here.
Hmm.
It was like at some point it was just like a switch that went off, and I don't know why it went off, but it just went off, and I was like, I know what happened here. And my great grandmother and great grandfather, when they were alive, they told me, like when I was younger, like where they were at when Martin Luther King got killed.
Hmm.
And they would tell me how the nasty things that they went through, but in my youth, I don't think I was able to truly process it because it's just like I understand, but I don't, And I to this day, I wish that both of them were still here so I could have those conversations with them now.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Fred Hampton thing, that movie, it took me a lot to watch that because I knew once they got to that scene, the anger I was gonna feel, and once they started getting to it, I was like, I don't want to watch this anymore. Um, yeah, that's another one. Like the fear and hate that they had towards him and the Black Panthers. It's just there is a book, The Assassination of Fred Hampton, that
I
goes
read
into
it. I read that before. I read that before I saw the movie. I read it way before I saw the movie, actually.
I was like, really? Really? That I think about, I think about Malcolm as well. I think about Malcolm X, and I'm just, yeah. Again, why I take such great offense when I hear people say I'm not my ancestors, and I'm just like,
Hmm.
the PTSD that they had, the paranoia. It's like I have a book of Malcolm X photos, and as it got towards the end of his life, and you saw how demeanor changed, how he looked tired, he looked so restless. You could just tell like he knew somebody was after him, and I'm just like, what kind of life is that
Hmm.
to live? I couldn't fathom. I just couldn't fathom.
Yeah, I got you, man. So we're gonna get into one more thing I want to talk about, and then we're gonna close out. You brought it up earlier. He joins the minstrel show, gets bought. That whole situation was interesting, where somebody can come along and buy somebody's property without really having a bill of sale or whatever it might be. But a person who's an ally, it comes across as an ally at first. Oh yeah, don't believe in slavery. Come with us. I'll pay you $1 for every show. I paid $200 for you, so 200 shows. How much does how much does the alto get paid? Oh, you don't worry about it. It's all what I mean. Like it's that part of getting over on somebody. But they do this minstrel show. He's in blackface. He's a black person in blackface. Norman's actually passing as a black person, the person we talked about earlier. And they do this show, and after, a man comes up and he's like, that's about as real as a wig that I've ever seen. Let me touch on that because I could smell me a nigger from 20 miles or whatever he said at the time. I was afraid for him in that situation. Scared. I'm like, I thought he was about to get found out right there, and I'm like, how is this about to work with somebody who has a vetted interest in something that they bought? How does that go?
I felt afraid, and I immediately felt angry when he went through pulling and touching the hair, and I'm just like, oh, oh. And then snuck into where they were sleeping, rubbing his fingers through. My God, yeah, I really I didn't know how they would make it out of that. In general, the first time it was like, okay, they got away, but and that this book had a tendency to do that in general, where
Mm-hmm.
you thought everything was good. 20 some pages later, it's like, God dang, or even maybe 2 pages later. So, and the same thing happened here, where he's like, okay, we're in the clear, and then he comes back, and then he's running his hands through the hair, and that entire section made me so uncomfortable in
Mm-hmm.
general. But it's real life.
Yeah.
We had black entertainers that were doing that to survive.
Mm-hmm.
That's the unfortunate truth in our history. So yeah, it's just like it was degrading. It bothered me. But like at the same time, like yeah, this did actually happen. This actually did happen in real life, and we all know the epidemic of your hair is so pretty. It's just like okay, look, don't touch.
Yeah, exactly. No, but it's also the look, don't touch, but it's even the you would say like it's hard to explain it as a black person or why asking like, what do you put in your hair? How did you get your hair like that? What do you mean? What- I've had, and I haven't had to. Well, I haven't really had to deal with my afro, but I've had white women come up and be like, "Oh my God, your beard is so." First of all, hello. Second of all, no, you can't touch that. I will not let you touch that. And you definitely should never do that again because you won't meet somebody as nice as me. And I know I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna give you half my beard down the road and everything, but like that's the level of unmitigated gall to be able to do that is just outrageous. And I hate to say they don't know no better, but that's what we say behind closed doors. But it's like that's personal space, period.
Mm-hmm.
That has nothing to do with don't know any better. That's like you don't put your hands on somebody. You don't put your hand on nobody. Period. From my household,
No.
let alone somebody of the opposite race or just even sex. Like no, everybody
Mm-hmm.
has their personal bubble that you stay in, and you don't go outside of that.
Yeah,
Um,
I've
but
been there too when I've had my fro, and the thing is, it wouldn't just be the women; it would be the guys too. I'm just like, hold on, sir, wait a
mhm,
minute.
mhm,
There's a bubble here. You came a little too close. I'm like, I don't get it.
yeah.
I don't get it. And to see that again, this was stuff way back. Yeah, it's wild.
And I guess that's also the humor in it too. Like you said, he's sleep in the tent, and all of a sudden he sees somebody, he starts feeling like, what's about to you come in this tent
Mm-hmm.
to touch my hair to make sure I'm who I'm supposed to be, or like, and it's outrageous, man. So I like I said, I want to keep these to an hour, man. We could talk forever. I want you to go ahead. I know you said, man, at the end of the book, I had to go talk to my wife, and man, go ahead, end it how you want to end it, man. I know the ending is great. It's a triumphant ending. It is to me, and I hate to say this because I don't believe in perfect endings, but like really, it was something that I couldn't have written it any better to end,
No,
and I wouldn't have known how to write it any better to end. I guess you can
same,
say.
same.
Um, And so I'll just go ahead and ask you for closing remarks, man.
I think I think this book is, I think it's brilliant. Yeah, and I know we use terms like that so loosely now with everything. Brilliant, classic, but I think the book is brilliant because I think it takes a historical period um, of the past, but makes it relevant today. I mean, these things are still happening, but it makes it accessible. I guess the term I should say. It makes it accessible for readers of today to be able to identify with as well. Um, yeah, like I said, there's things in that book where most of us we look at each other like this stuff still happens. We
Mhm.
still do this. We still get lectures from our family how to code switch. We still get these things. Um, so yeah, I think he's a genius. His wayward words are just amazing. Yeah, if you haven't read more of his stuff, I definitely recommend going into that back catalog. Um, Glad he's kind of getting his just due now. I feel like there was a period where you didn't hear really anything unless you were like a hardcore reader.
Mhm.
So I'm glad he's getting that attention now, and I think it's something everyone everyone should read.
Mhm. Out of 5 stars, how many you give it?
Also five for me.
I agree. Same. As I close out, man, I just watching interviews of him over the last couple of days and hearing what he's talking about and hearing what people are saying to him about the book, about things that are in it. One thing you hope that when people read books or just about the black experience or experience in general is you hope they just don't read the book and be like, all right, that was good, and then go on about their life. You would hope they take something from it to try to apply to their life. He said something really good in the interview. He said, I'm not telling you how to think. He said, I want to live in a world where people think. And that's what he said. And I was like, damn. He's letting you know, like, I'm not trying to sit here to let you know, hey, you should think slavery's bad, or you should think this person was the bad one, or is Huck wrong here, James wrong here, is this one. He wants you to think. And I feel like that's what a lot of people aren't doing these days, is we're letting other people's opinions or what they're saying come into our head, and us being like, yeah, he's right about that. And the
Mhm.
latest thing to come into us and for us to digest, and we're like, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. No, that's right. I like being around people who have a stance on something, and that they can really sit back and be like, I really feel like this is my perspective. This is what I think from my personal experience. And I'm also open to feeling a different way based upon other people I talk to. But I'm
Mhm.
also rooted in how I feel about this. And I feel like this is one of those books that is that, where they ask those hard questions about what is justice, what is slavery, what is property, why am I considered property, why are things the way they are, and not having a way to articulate or explain that to a little kid, to,
Mhm.
to you know what I mean, to two different races of people for two different environments that live two different lives, yet they're on this raft going down the river and surviving together, and in the end they both help keep each other alive based upon the ecosystem that they're in. So if you had anything to add on to that, man, but that's all I was into.
I'm gonna add one minor thing with the excuse me, with the quote that you had said, and um, we have to be willing to have those tough conversations. They're not going to be easy, and we also have to be able to agree to disagree as well, and still be able to move forward. Which I feel like now I don't know what happened. It's like, it's everything is one extreme to the next. You see a movie, it's either a classic or it sucked. There's
Mhm.
no middle ground to where there's some good, there's some bad in it. You can't have that type of opinion anymore. Same thing with music. And if you have these different opinions, it automatically means we have to fight and insult each other. There's a quote that I am going to butcher, but it's a James
Butcher
Baldwin
away.
Yeah, it's a James Baldwin quote where he said we could disagree and still love each other, but take it to this thing is like if you disrespect me, then we have a problem or something to that extent.
Hmm.
And I just think we need to be able to get back to that. We've lost our way in more ways than one.
I love that. I love that. I'm gonna look up the quote. I'm pretty sure you got it right because you're a very smart dude.
Oh, no, I got the first half right. I think.
But like you said, we can. When you say we can disagree and still,
Love each other.
yeah,
But I think like when you disrespect me or some to that extent, then we have a problem. It's that's barely what the quote says. But
but it's saying, but it's yeah, but it's saying it's like what I said. We can have differing of opinions,
mhm.
and I'm not gonna change your mind in a conversation. You're not gonna change my mind. But I think the middle ground is understanding where the other person is coming from, understanding the other person's point of view. And I feel like now we're just like, no, you're wrong. I'm right. No need for us to talk, like you said. So, but if we keep having conversations and we keep connecting like this, man, we'll get people to think critically. And that's why I was really looking forward to sitting down with you, discussing this book, looking forward to discussing books and stuff moving forward. You know what I mean? It doesn't even have to be a common read. Like you are an encyclopedia for books and movies, and I'm gonna tap into that. And
Everybody says that. It must be
hey,
true.
man,
It must be true.
like I said, man, don't run away from it, run to it. And but I feel like we bring something very valuable to this space, and that's two smart black dudes being able to joke around, laugh, find humor, and also just be serious and talk about some things that are really alive and bothering the world and really meaningful in the world, I would say. So, man, Key, I appreciate you, brother. As we close out James by Percival Everett, looking forward to reading more stuff with you. Looking for more forward to more conversations with you. Um, and at the end of the day, man, I'm just appreciative that you took a leap of faith and went outside your comfort zone to do something with a black dude with a beard that lives in LA. And man, I just look forward to keep on forging a friendship moving forward, man. So I really appreciate you.
The feeling is mutual. Definitely looking forward to what comes next, and yeah, I'm looking forward to the next book or whatever it's gonna be. I'm ready.
Sounds good, man. Once again, I'm Uncle Drew. That's Keitravis Esquire. Uncle Drew's Book Club will be popping up here and there. Honestly, I want to do this with you once a month. We don't even have to be on a common read. Like I said, man, let's just come on here once a month, shoot the shit for 30 minutes, an hour, and talk about whatever we're going to talk about. Chazzy Chat. Bro, that's hard to say. Chazzy Chat. Chazzy Chat, thanks for falling through. Ari Danny, thanks for falling through. This will be up on YouTube. But once again, man, if you guys want to read books, follow both of us. Keitravis posts some very good stuff about music, movies, just film, photography, just a bunch of great stuff. And I talk about reading and sports and life coaching, but two interesting casts that I'm pretty sure you'll love to be around. We want more interesting people interacting with us on threads, on Instagram, on many various forums and platforms. But we got to get you a YouTube started, man. This is my first video on my YouTube. This is my first one. You on my first one, bro. We did the first one
Oh
together.
man, my wife earlier today was telling her about something, and she was just like, "Oh, here's the YouTube. Here it is." I'm like,
That's what I'm working on for 2025 to get you on YouTube and for you to start. And then we both moving.
I guess, man.
I appreciate you, brother. We'll shut it down now because I'm the person that keeps talking when I'm supposed to turn off the camera. But thank everybody for being here. Appreciate you. Keep reading, keep picking up books, keep taking in knowledge and information to disseminate it. And once again, I'm Uncle Drew. That's Keitravis Esquire. And we'll holler at y'all in the future.